Sexuality, romance, and love need to be recognized and acknowledged as normal parts of the lives of young people with disabilities, and parents play such a big role in building space for this. Listen to Gopika Kapoor, a parent and autism consultant, and Parul Kumtha, a trustee for Forum for Autism, a narrative counselor, and an architect, talk about this and more as they advise parents on starting these conversations and share anecdotes from their own lives.
So, as a parent, even thinking about your daughter in the context of love, romance, and sex can be extremely uncomfortable. These are topics that may not have even crossed our minds. And at the same time, we know that our daughter is growing up. So, Parul, you are a parent of Kabir, who is 28 and has autism, and have not only been through this stage yourself, but have also advised so many parents through Forum for Autism, which is the parent support group that you have helped establish. So, how do you deal with this yourself, and what is your advice to other parents?
So, Gopika, this is a very interesting question that you brought forth. The one thing I have realized as a parent in general, and also a parent of a person with special support needs, is that we look at every milestone that a child goes through with so much joy and attention. The first step, the first time he sat, and the first time, all of these things are so they form such beautiful memories. And somewhere along the way, for all parents, and again, definitely for parents of special support needs and those that have girls, somehow the milestone of becoming a sexual being seems to become non-existent. It's like that's not a milestone I have to look at. And that is something that I also personally have had to overcome, because it is a beautiful milestone. In fact, I remember the first time my son had nightfall, and that was such a beautiful moment for us, that, oh, he's grown up, he realized that. And, for mothers of girls, when they get their first period, to realize that now she's becoming a woman, that's an important milestone, just like her first step. So changing our attitude actually and looking at this firstly as a necessary milestone in the growth of a person, and also a very beautiful milestone that is like the crossing the threshold from childhood into adulthood. That is something I think that needs to be realized, internalized, and acknowledged. You know, also connected to that is this thing that we're looking for so many other things in our children's life, right? We're looking for them to go to senior school and then maybe to college and graduate and hold jobs, and we're looking at all of those milestones, and then we are kind of wanting to not look at this important milestone, the milestone of being a sexual being. And the two are, they cannot go, you cannot have one without the other. You are going to have your girl go to college, have her crushes, want to hang out with people, meet up at the canteen, want to go to movies, and even at the job, there will be all these things happening. And if we are not prepared for that, and if we are ignoring it, we are not preparing our person for it either. So I think that is the shift that we need to make as parents. And when we do that and become a part of that journey with our children, it's really a very beautiful feeling. I'm still learning it, but I can say from the little that I have experienced from having overcome some of those obstacles, I would say it's a beautiful thing.
That's really lovely. I'm still in this kind of transitory phase with both my kids, and I'm learning to kind of imbibe some of your very zen attitude towards puberty and adolescence and change and kind of development and growth of in this respect. And so I know that for me, thinking about my daughter who is neurotypical, having romantic feelings or being attracted to someone made me excited. I was very excited for her. But at the same time, I felt very protective. I wanted to keep her safe. With my son, who is also 16 and who has autism, I felt that any girl whom he liked would be likely to take advantage of it. So I was a little, I think, more protective of him. And that's something that I continue to feel to a certain extent. For both of them, I, of course, did feel that by keeping them at home, I was keeping them safe, you know. But then I realized that this is not the solution, because it's almost like imprisoning them. So I realized that I would have to let them go out and explore the world, to kind of let them take their own decisions, good and bad, to let them sometimes take the wrong decisions, to let them fail, and to let them have what Mary Barua so beautifully calls the dignity of risk. And I still worry about this. I still do. I will not deny it. I still worry about this. But I realize that in order to let them go, and in order to let them explore the world around them and be complete human beings, I have to let go of my fear, because otherwise they're not going to be able to go out and explore and figure out really who they are. So how do you think we can do this as parents? How do we communicate our support? This is something which is an internal battle which many of us have, and we maybe emerge out of it. But how do we communicate our support, our our wholehearted kind of being there for our children with them?
Actually, as you were speaking, this one incident came to my mind, and I just thought I should start off answering you by relating this incident. And so Kabir, my son, belongs to a group of intellectually disabled adults. It's a club, and they used to meet every Saturday before the pandemic struck. And then they would do various things. They would go for a walk to Hanging Garden, or they would go out and eat at restaurants or catch a movie or something like that. And there's this particular girl in that group who my son had hit it off with. So if they went out for walks, they would like hold hands, and they would want to sit next to each other in the movie and all of that. And once my mom, that's Kabir's grandmom, was visiting us, so she said that she would, we said, I kind of pulled her out for a walk. They were going for a walk to Hanging Garden that afternoon. And she saw Kabir walking hand in hand with this young lady. And so we were lagging behind, and my mom turns to me and says, "Who's that girl who's holding his hand? Huh? Who's holding his hand? It's not like he's holding her hand." So I said, "She's his girlfriend." So my mom said, "Oh, okay." And then her next question was, "What's her surname?" And I found that so hilarious, because my siblings and I have given my mom no choice in who we choose as life partners. And she has, we've got married across the communities and all of that. But what I liked was the normalness of her question as a grandma. Saying, okay, if she's my grandson's girlfriend, I would like to know what her surname is. And it kind of put things in perspective for me also, that yes, there is some normalcy in this, hanging out with a girl. Yeah, however simple it might seem and uncomplicated to us, but it is a very important part of his life, right? We sometimes don't realize how dependent our children are on us for really small things, and to make these spaces available to them, when they have support needs. And one scene from Margarita with a Straw comes to mind when I say this. For those of us who've seen the film, you might remember that the protagonist, the girl, she has a crush on somebody at her college, and then she's kind of wanting to have a date-like thing at the canteen. And so she wants to look her best. And that morning, and this is a girl with cerebral palsy, so that morning when her mother is bathing her, she requests her mother for a shampoo. And the mom says, "Shampoo in the middle of the week? I don't have time for this," because the mom is a working mom and all that. you only get shampoos on Sunday. And she says, no, but I need a shampoo today. And then her mom says, don't be silly. I really don't have time and don't talk rubbish. And then she has a meltdown after that. And it's really so, I mean, it really, my heart clenched when I saw that and realized that this is just a simple request from a girl who needs someone to help her with shampooing her hair. And then when I was in college, my mom didn't decide when I shampooed my hair and when I wanted to look good for and for whom. Yeah. But these small things, they are in our hands. And if we can't make them available for our children, it's their loss and it's also our loss. And in some ways, like to give you another example of this, recently my son has started using the phone a lot and he likes to surf YouTube videos. And then very often he kind of goes from that into other sites and he's watching all kinds of things that interest him. And then at some point he wants to come back to what he was watching earlier and he can't come back. He can't negotiate and come back, navigate and come back. And he comes to my husband or me for help. And very often he's watching something quite, you know, something that we could kind of give a value added lesson on. But but we always feel, and this is something we've decided, that we just bring him back to where he was. It's not our job to comment on what he's doing. He's 28. He has all rights to watch what he wants to on his mobile phone, right? It's just because he doesn't have the ability to navigate that that he's asking for help from us. So we as parents, we are the aides. We are not the deciders. We need to help our children in that space, not give them value added guidance on it, especially when it's not needed, especially when their peers who are neurotypical and not obviously disabled are going about their lives without interference from their parents on simple things like this. So I think getting into this other space is also a very important uh, aspect of acknowledging our children's sexuality.
I absolutely love that, where you say that we are the aides and not the deciders. And I think that that is something that all parents need to remember, whether of specially able kids, children or not, but more specifically, because with respect to children who have, or the adults who have special needs. This reminds me again, when you talked about the margarita with a straw incident, it reminded me of how when in the movie Barfi, where you have Priyanka Chopra, she's a young woman with autism, and she is dressed in a frock, and it is something which, and of course, in contrast to her, there is the other girl who's very lovely and who's wearing this beautiful sari and with her waist showing, and it's just looking so lovely. And there's that obvious comparison, and there's a scene where Priyanka herself tries to imitate wearing the sari and trying to kind of really understand her own sense of her own body and her attractiveness and what it feels like to dress as a typically developing woman, as she would if she was typically developing, but because of her parents have put her on these strange frocks that she has to wear, it's almost like the sense of her personhood is lost. And this is something which I feel very, very strongly about, because I really feel that for a large part of their lives, these young women get so much of their confidence from us, their parents, because they live largely at home. They're surrounded by their parents, and when they have a disability of some sort, as parents, we tend to become so protective of them. Almost like a helicopter parent, that when they want to explore anything, including love, romance, and sex, the answer is no, and it's not for you. Okay? This, of course, like we talked about earlier, could stem from our own fear, it could stem from our own sense of wanting to protect them, but it's that sense that of it's not meant for you, ye tumhare bas ki baat nahi hai. is what tends to come out. At the same time, we know that our daughters have every right to feel attractive as well as attracted to others. And they have the right to dress their own needs. They have the right to experiment with makeup, to flirt with other people, to hold hands and walk in the park. And they have, above all, I think, the right to hope and dream. So if as parents we don't help them realize this, then who else really will? And it's not just about physical attraction, it's about being confident, it's about having a multifaceted personality. And this really goes a long way, not only in building, in helping them to be confident in love and romance, but in helping them build friendships and helping them in college, getting a job. What do you think about that?
Yes, totally. Gopika, what you said is so important. And this acknowledging the personhood and also supporting them to grow in their personhood, you know, to understand themselves as persons, not just as persons who can solve math and write letters and hold jobs, but also persons who are attractive and attracted and able to act upon those. And also, most importantly, like you said earlier, and this is the fear that every parent carries with them, do it safely. You know, so connected to the personhood is this whole thing of knowing your boundaries and also being able to acknowledge the boundaries of others. It's both because we don't want our persons to, especially with boys, this is something we would feel. And, while girls, parents or mothers would feel there would be unnecessary attention heaped on them and then not being able to protect themselves, there is often this fear with mothers of boys that they may do something which would be misunderstood, you know. So there is this thing, and both of these are not socially accepted. People are not mature enough to realize that this is done out of a situation of not doing better. And so these kind of things need to be uh, kind of worked on so that our adults realize their personhood in a safe and appropriate manner. And one thing about this again that I learned from so many people before me, from so many parents, and like Mary Barwa and so many others, and all the sharing that's happened down the ages, uh, of having to start with this early, not when the person becomes a sexual being, not in adolescence, because what is personhood and what are boundaries? I mean, this is something that has to be that evolves with age. So, for example, understanding what private spaces are, not acknowledge like have if you have a child who's allowed to roam in an inappropriately dressed manner anywhere in the house, it's so much more difficult later to then get that person to understand that when you are pleasuring yourself, that has to be done in a private space. But if a child grows up knowing that the toilet or the privacy of their bedroom is where they undress and dress, or the bathroom is where they undress and dress, then it's so easy when they grow older to just say to them that, if you want to pleasure yourself, you have to do that in the private spaces, not in the public space. So it's like a natural progression of growing into that. Just to share some examples of from my own personal life. My son, because he has autism, he has these sensory issues, and he always goes with the stop button, and that's my son in the background in his closed T-shirt. He'll always have a U-necked T-shirt and no buttons, and if there are buttons, he'll have them buttoned to the top, even of his shirt. So there was a time when he wouldn't tolerate open collars for anyone, and he would go around, closing everybody's top button. And for example, if a collar like this would be very unsettling to him because it doesn't have a button at the top. And over the years, we had to work with him and let him know that you can wear your clothes the way you want to, but I will wear my clothes the way I want to. And I especially remember, and he knows I'm relating this incident about him. Yeah, Kabir, it's about when we went to a wedding and he insisted on wearing his Indian kurta tucked into his churidar because he didn't like any flapping loose ends. And I had to respect that he wanted to do it. Fortunately, it was a close family wedding, and everybody knew him, and nobody raised an eyebrow about it, or if they did, it wasn't brought to our notice. But because we could do that, today he's at a point where he can let others know this is my boundary. These are my clothes. I wear them how I want to. And at the same time, he can acknowledge that that is your boundary. I cannot tell you how you should be wearing your clothes. And the same thing translates into when you become a sexual being. If somebody doesn't want your attention, you don't give it. And if you don't want somebody's attention, you have the right to say, no, I will not tolerate this. And it's a process of growing into that. So I don't know if these examples have made that clear enough, but essentially, it's not something you need to work with only after the person starts realizing what sexuality is about. It's something that you grow into from other examples and situations from a younger time.
Absolutely. Yeah. True.
This video ends with two logos on a yellow background. The first one is a pink heart and a plus sign and has Pyaar Plus written underneath. And the second one is a green and black eye and has point of view written next to it.